Hello. My name is Lauren Heistad, author to the book Homecoming. Having a weird day. I keep trying to start my day and I keep ending up back here, reading another chapter. I've actually recorded many of these chapters within a very quick succession of time. Probably 3 weeks maybe, not even. Very big changes happening in me, and sometimes they're not all that easy to navigate. I'm losing my voice today. I've recorded so many and yet I'm here again, so I'll try one more and then maybe I can go rest. So bizarre. I don't use that term actually very often because my life is full of miraculous craziness. Today's pretty weird. Okay. Let's see. Chapter 32, Standing Tall. An interesting chapter for sure. I keep calling my book Biblical Entanglement, and there's been a very few references so far as to why I say that. And in this chapter it starts to come out a little bit more, but it's interesting because I don't think I really understood it at the time. And this is probably what started the process of my life falling into alignment with biblical texts and seemingly stuck in that loop, even though I kept trying to get out of it. I've made peace with it thousands of times over. I've thought I closed that chapter thousands of times over. If that were true, I guess I wouldn't be on my 5th recording for the day, still trying to push this through. Not for me, even at this point, although maybe the inner peace would feel damn good. But I can feel and hear myself being called by the world. And, there's only so much I can say and do as an individual, and I know that. But I can keep showing up, and I can keep pressing forward through what feels right to me right now. And I guess that's just to keep reading. So here we go. Standing Tall. I have to back up for my eyes to adjust. I wrote my first book, Activating Your SOULworks, in the fall of 2012. And it would take another 1.5 years to feel brave enough to publish those words. And yet, likely another year to fully stand behind them. And perhaps brave isn't even the right word. What I had to do was get to the point where I valued my work and my own ambitions enough to financially support my own dreams. I had to get to the position of trusting that my words were of value to myself and this world without first having anyone else acknowledge that truth. In fact, in hindsight, it was not an act of bravery at all. It was an act of seeing my own self-worth. Here's how it all started. I had been inspired to write a book for many years. However, I could not quite articulate or determine what I would share that would be of value to anyone. As my life began to unfold, one spiritual experience after another, my need to write became an inner craving. Despite this pull to put pen to paper, I never actually moved forward with any of my own dreams and plans until one day I finally looked to the spirit world for guidance. If I am to write a book, please provide guidelines, motivation, time, and a deadline to work within, I requested. I had tried many times in the past to get this project underway. Still working on that. Good God. And yet still it seemed to lack priority. Later that day, I received an email from a friend regarding an author's contest and a friendly nudge to enter a manuscript. I had never, ever actually discussed my aspirations of becoming a writer with anyone, and yet she forwarded the information just the same. Interesting, I thought to myself while still dismissing the contest because of its looming deadline of only 3 weeks away. That's weird. See, I'm in a weird time warp right now. I just finished saying the same thing. I've been working on speaking and telling my story for about 3 weeks now. Crazy. Anyways, back to this particular story. 3 weeks? That was way too short a notice to meet their minimum word requirements. I reasoned while hitting the delete button. The next morning I received the very same email, this time from a different friend. And once again, I was being encouraged to submit an entry to the contest. This is ridiculous. I thought to myself, I can't work under this kind of pressure. On the third day, and ironically after receiving the third nudge from the universe, I finally decided to step into the opportunity that was blatantly knocking on my door. Actually, that's not even completely true. What I first did, before I sat down and poured my heart and soul onto paper, was to ask my guides if it was worth it. Is it worth the effort? In other words, would I win the contest? The answer to my question was a resounding yes. And so I went to work, trying to capture my greatest spiritual teachings and moments in a fraction of time. 2 weeks went by in what felt like months. Every day I would sit down at the computer with my word count goal for the day, and each day, without fail, my guides and I would enter a magical land of channeled messages, warped time, and Godspeed. It was the most magical 2 weeks ever. Not even so much because the words were flowing or time eluded my awareness. It was because I was riding the high of following my dream. I actually finished and submitted my entry a few days prior to the deadline. I then sat back, proud as a peacock with my recent accomplishment, and waited for the phone call from my soon-to-be editors. It was a long wait. I never did receive that phone call. Despite the reassurance from my guides regarding my guaranteed win, I had failed miserably. I believe the actual response to the rejection was, WTF. Oh. And then I put in a little note for those who don't know texting lingo. What the frick, for those who are not up on that. Or my tenacity to swear. It happens. I wallowed in self-pity for longer than I care to admit, and then somewhere along the way, pulled myself back up and went to work with Plan B, submitting my manuscript to larger publishing houses. Of course, I did not proceed without asking the usual question of my spiritual team on the likelihood of my success. In response to my question, I received a resounding yes and an encouraging 2 thumbs up to proceed. A good sign, I thought to myself. Therefore, imagine my surprise as rejection letter after rejection letter came, followed by the earth-shattering shock to my system. No publishing house was interested in my work. Not actually what I had in terms of success. I angrily voiced to the universe, I mean seriously, what the frick? Furthering this journey, and despite my unsuccessful attempts to be noticed as a budding new author, I came to the startling realization. Here's the startling realization. I was much more interested in getting the information out to the world than my original focus on being noticed. After all, my message was far more important than focusing on who was saying it or what publishing house was backing the book. There was also a moment of clarity when I questioned how anyone else would ever value my work if I did not value it myself. With that shocking discovery, I further extended my line of credit and invested in myself once again. This time through the avenue of self-publishing. It was Plan C in action, and truly an emotional burst of satisfaction the day my book arrived in hard copy. First book, Activating Your SOULworks, published January 21, 2014. Pure joy and pride oozed into my energy field for not only putting myself out there, but for standing behind my work and my experiences. I still can't actually put a value on that feeling. Definitely immeasurable. At one point, a few months later, another author's contest surfaced in my inbox, and this time I noticed the fine print. Entrants who attend the author's conference receive priority. I'm like, holy crap, how did I not see this before? My guides had clearly said I would win all those years ago. Perhaps I had originally entered the wrong contest. Definitely. It was on to plan D. With my suitcase packed and excitement in the air, I headed to the United States to take part in what was sure to be an amazing workshop and key to moving my work forward. The workshop was incredible. It was. I learned so much about what publishers are expecting. Not me. How to build your platform on your own, and how to best represent your work to the world. I was riding a high and enjoying every moment of the teachings. At one point, one of my all-time favorite authors took the stage to discuss what readers are looking for in a good book, how to write for a spiritual audience, as well as discussions on book titles. Now here is where the day took a sideways derailment for me, big time, and Plan D lost all appeal and potential. The dialogue changed gears a bit, and the speaker started talking about bad book titles. At this point, she probed the president of the publishing house and said, "What was that book that crossed your desk the other day? Activating Your Soul something?" Truth. Her question was followed by a 5-minute rant on how you can't activate your soul, and that the book title alone was enough to make her dismiss the book and material altogether without further review. The sweet victory of having published my own book ended just as swiftly, as I watched my life's work literally devoured on the stage that day, leaving a sour and bitter taste in my mouth over the entire experience. I guess that experience no longer bothers me because I definitely was not laughing at that moment. Now I can. That's healing and growth, isn't it? Back to the story, though. Admittedly, I gasped out loud. I did. And fought back tears as I watched my book publicly criticized in a group far larger than I suddenly wished it to be. I always wondered how many people were there. I think about 2,500. I'm not quite sure. Somewhere in that ballpark anyways. 3,000 maybe? Bigger than I wanted. And the swift title rejection was a hard truth to follow. Swallow. And follow. First, I had to wrap my head around the fact that I had flown internationally and spent $10,000 on a trip to see my book being publicly criticized by one of my all-time favorite authors. It felt like she had just swallowed my entire life's work right there on stage and stifled any chance of it being read anytime soon. As I watched this horrific scene play out, my guides quoted the Bible. Revelations 10:10, I heard within my mind. And my reaction? Shut up. Shut up. Was my original response to the guidance received and their quoted scripture. As I adamantly protested to the heavens, I knew there was a reason I was inspired to attend that workshop. However, this was certainly not what I expected. Most disheartening was the fact that I had to officially consider my book already rejected, only 2 months after it went on the shelf. 2 months, not even. It was a rough weekend for me, and I must admit, it took me some time to move forward. I'll be right back. Slight pause. Okay. So, later, as I sulked in my hotel room, which is legit what I did, only human, I literally sulked in my hotel room. But then I apologized to my spiritual team for my pouty behavior, took the advice of my guides, and looked up the verse they had quoted. It was Revelations 10:10, and it said, "And I took the little scroll from the hand of the angel and ate it. And it was sweet as honey in my mouth, but when I had eaten it, my stomach was made bitter. And I was told, you must again prophesy." I was startled and somewhat amused by this seemingly clear and symbolic account on what had transpired. I also learned great minds, such as Nostradamus or Edgar Cayce, had predicted the importance of this biblical reference to time in times to come. Both prophets identified the connection of the chakras to the symbolism found in Revelation. Nostradamus revealed that the scroll in Revelation would be an actual book. It would have 7 seals, or chakras, visually depicted on both the front and back cover, as well as the inside. And the book would explain that chakras were key to enlightenment. Nostradamus also referenced that the book would not be accepted by the general public, and in fact would be swallowed up by an earth angel until a set amount of time had passed. Well, that was ironically accurate on all accounts, but ridiculous, I thought to myself. Surely I do not have to compare my first little book to biblical proportions in order to smooth my bruised ego. Surely I only needed to move beyond the personal rejection I felt that day and move on. Truth. On to plan E. Screw it. I would just continue to speak my truth and have faith. Whoever needed to hear my words would hear my words. Whoever needed to see the truth would see the truth. You can most certainly activate, evolve, and master your soul works. I would help people stand in their roles as healers, change makers, and co-creators of our world every single day. Divine timing may be at play here, but I knew my words would continue to reach anyone who needed to see, feel, hear, or know the inner wisdom of their own soul works. In fact, I would not let this setback stop me. I would continue to write and even start book 2, which is the one we're reading right now. I adamantly declared my frustrations as they gained workable momentum. My drive to create awareness and clarity regarding the spiritual world extends beyond the ages and is virtually unstoppable. Of course, being a true spiritualist, I also believe everything happens for a reason. I know the events around that particular workshop were just as divinely orchestrated as any other moment in our lives in which we learn and grow from. First of all, I realize and appreciate that if my first book had gained global support in its infancy, my entire life would have played out much differently. The time needed to work through my vast encounters and soulful adventures depicted in prophecy, haven't even got to those yet, that further defined my life purpose, would never have played out the way they did. That's a fact. Secondly, for my own inner growth, I also know that weekend was the very first time I saw famous authors or large publishing houses as real, down-to-earth people with their own insecurities and judgments. This game-changing turning point was very significant to my own development. I do not feel it is healthy for anyone to place people on a pedestal, even if they are a best-selling author, or a successful organization, or a messenger of change. In retrospect, I had not even realized I had placed anyone above myself until I let one author's opinion shatter my world. Truth be told, I did value her work, and likely always will. However, I have also since learned to value and respect my own. I'm no longer letting the opinions of others intimidate the reach I will achieve, the people I will inspire, the impact I will make, or how I feel about my worthiness to do so. I am motivated beyond comprehension, especially today apparently, to inspire and teach the world with or without a publishing house backing me, and I will definitely continue to do so. It took me a long time to accomplish that state of mind and move forward. I must confess that the continuous rejections for many, many years wobbled my world. However, when the wobble was done, what was left was an inner peace to stand behind my work with true conviction. Today, I have complete faith in all that I do. My writing, my connection with spirit, and the inspirational potential that comes from my profound life stories and teachings. I have also come to appreciate how the universe always answers my requests in its own unique ways that are just perfect for my own development, even though I may not always view it from that perspective at the time. After all, I did originally receive the guidelines, motivation, time, and deadline to work towards, as per my request, as well as the inner confidence and self-worth to stand in my truth. I know I will succeed. I was just wondering what I was going to succeed in. Either way, I'll succeed. Lost my spot in my book, though. I will succeed in bringing my teachings, inspirations, and experiences to the masses. In many respects, I already have. I know I am officially ready to stand behind my work, and I also know the world is officially ready to receive the level of wisdom I have to share. For that confidence, I am grateful. In fact, I believe I may have just finally won. evolving your soul works. Manifesting the life of your dreams is, of course, a huge topic these days. Everyone is learning how to put their intentions out into the universe, to surrender to spirit, to watch their dreams become reality. Easy, right? Not always. Not always. It is certainly becoming second nature for the most of us to bring clarity to our dreams, to weed through the clutter and to decide what it is we truly desire. That's easy. That is the part where we just let ourselves dream big, with no limitations on what we sincerely wish to achieve. The hard part is realizing there truly are no limits to what we can accomplish. And even more difficult is staying focused on those dreams until they become a reality. Many times, our minds like to move into fear mode and bring logic into the equation, stating things like, I have no idea how this is ever going to change. Or, this manifesting stuff, not working for me. The interesting and truthfully most exciting part of manifesting is letting go. Letting go of the expectation of how and when your dreams will be achieved. To have a plan, but to stay unattached as to how it will unfold. To take the steps toward fulfilling your dreams, but to leave room for the universe to provide its magical support in mysterious ways. Take my writing, for example. I did it. I wrote and published. Now in here I say 2 books, but we're dealing with 4 at this point. Despite numerous rejections and roadblocks along the way. From an outside perspective, it may seem as though the process was simple. Truthfully, not so much. It was one roller coaster ride after another. However, if I could do it all over again, would I skip the roller coaster ride? Well, maybe a few aspects. Looking back, though, it is those ups and downs that truly made for an exciting ride. Don't get me wrong. There were certainly many guideposts along the way propelling me to keep moving forward, but if I'm to be brutally honest, there were also many times when I felt like throwing in the towel and giving up on my dream of becoming a published author simply because it was not unfolding the way I thought it would. Not even close. It is these very critical low moments, and let's be honest, there is never just one moment, there's also many of them, when all things seem to be falling apart. And you begin to believe this manifesting stuff is just for dreamers. When those times arrive, we often start giving in to fears and starting leaving our big dreams and plans behind. We even let ourselves assume we read the markers wrong or followed the wrong guidance. However, that is not the time to stop or get off the ride. Quite the opposite. It is at this exact moment when you start to waver in faith that you must keep moving ahead. Leave all your fears behind and blindly move forward, knowing full well Spirit has your back and that all will come into full completion. Many times we think we know the plan, because intuitively we know we're part of the creation process. However, there also needs to be an element of that true, authentic surrender. A time when you believe enough in your higher self and the divine to say, okay, I don't see the whole plan. But I'm still willing to try. This is not even close to how I thought this would play out. But I'll keep pursuing my vision. I do not necessarily know where this will lead, but I do know there's a divine plan. In the physical reality, this may not be apparent yet, but the path may have taken a slightly different direction than what you were expecting. But kick your faith into high gear anyway. It is in this blind faith that you will finally see the full glory of the divine and watch as change gracefully walks into your life with full force. The tides will turn. They will. And everything will magically begin to fall into place. It is within these magical moments that you will undoubtedly see the bigger picture and realize there truly was a divine plan. And I guarantee you, you will also get right back on that ride and do it all over again. Not because you have to, but because you begin to wonder what else you could achieve. Enjoy the ride. Your move. Embrace the wobble. I know we can magically create our life with grace and ease, but quite frankly, I also know some things are well worth the emotional wobbles and uphill battles it takes to blaze new trails. As the pen is my sword, I embrace the challenge of rising above the wobble, to support a cause I believe in. I encourage you to do the same. Avoid waiting for everything in your world to line up perfectly before you make your move and follow your dreams. Instead, make your move to follow your dreams so everything in your world can begin to line up perfectly. It's really just a matter of perspective. But the results, life-changing. See the blessing in disguise. It always amazes me to witness how change in our lives can impact so many, and how each person can receive a blessing in their own unique and special way. The lesson is to see the blessing in each situation, even though at first it may not appear as one. When you can learn to see hard lessons as blessings in disguise, you truly begin to understand and appreciate how magical this universe really is. Give thanks for the people in your life who bring you challenges and create hardships. Their actions propel you forward, give you strength, and build your character. Remove your pedestals or install enough for everyone. Who have you been putting ahead of or above yourself? Who in your life do you see as having accomplished something you are not able to achieve, or are in the position you yourself... I have to read that again. Who in your life do you see as having accomplished something you are not able to achieve, or are in a position you yourself do not feel you can hold? I encourage you to stop that. Stop it. We all have the equal capacity to create change in this world, and we all hold the potentials to be masters of our own universe. Stop letting the opinions and actions of others change your values or confidence. Stop letting the positions of others influence your own. And for heaven's sake, Stop selling yourself short. When others formulate a judgment or exhibit a lack of awareness regarding your potential. Everyone is at a different place in their own development and soul path. That does not make either position wrong. It just means they're different. Value your own self-worth. It is time to see and value your own spirit. Honor the wisdom you hold, the lessons you have learned, and the inner voice that seeks to be heard. You do not need anyone else's permission but yours. In fact, you are the only one who can truly place value on yourself. You are the only one standing in your way of achieving true greatness. Step aside and let your inner light shine, please. Limit yourself for no one, not even yourself. There are many people who feel others undermine or do not value them for what they bring to the table. Oftentimes, this is a reflection of how you value yourself. The more you see your potential and believe in yourself, the more others exhibit the same behavior and value towards you. Do not consider your light more insignificant than others, and do not dim or minimize your light for anyone. Stand in the magnitude of your holiness while honoring all others, so that others may see and be inspired by the holiness of your magnitude. Lastly, treat others the way you want to be treated. This term may seem outdated and as old as the hills, but truly it's still the most applicable formula to live and love by. The vibration we send into this world is the one we will receive back. Are you treating others with respect, dignity, and compassion, regardless of their thoughts, words, and deeds? Are you treating yourself with that same level of respect and appreciation? Just asking. Thank you again. We'll see you next time.